Roper's lead looks tenuous, but the minimum race requirement and his consistency with podiums has made him a favorite for the crown. 3 final races will decide the first season of 2024, so let's see who can seal the deal as we get ready to watch round 11 of the Porsche Owners Club Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is IMSA driver Michael Johnson. Behind the scenes is our director Daniel Costello, and he's using his cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Montreal will not be a place that offers much forgiveness. To understand what we mean, let's head to our track guide. Welcome to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Host of the Canadian Grand Prix for over 40 years, this track's popularity among fans refuses to wane. Although it has gone through a few alterations in its history, the nature of its layout has remained pretty much the same. That nature, of course, is that its 14 turns are mostly chicanes, split up by long straights to add up to a 2.7-mile street course-like canyon of a track. These 4.3 kilometers are mainly made up of actual streets on the man-made Ile Notre Dame, though portions are specifically built for the racetrack. But whether or not fans consider it a true street course, the close barriers that line the majority of the track don't care what you think. Places like the exit of Turn 4 and Turn 9 frequently collect the greedy. But these pale in infamy to the notorious Wall of Champions. Named for its penchant to collect F1 World Champions, the corner itself is called Quebec. Regardless, it's a finicky and tight chicane with a critical corner exit, so drivers are tempted into edging the car as close as they dare to the concrete. Despite the numerous heavy braking zones, passing can be difficult at times for certain types of cars. Often, attrition or cut course penalties play a bigger part in who finishes where. While sports cars and NASCAR have both made stops here, this place is mainly known for its history with Formula One. Named after what is easily Canada's most popular driver in the International Open Wheel Series, this semi-temporary circuit looks like it's actually here to stay for a long, long time. Well, you can see what I mean about this track being so punishing, Michael. I have a feeling drivers might just want to aim to get to the end over anything else.
Well, it's going to be quite the challenge, of course. This track, the walls are just, that is your limit. You don't get to run over. And with the way the curbing is here, it's just going to punish you going over those curbs. And you might just catch the bounce a little bit wrong. Out of these 13 turns here, depending on how you count them, about 2 3/4 miles-ish, it's really a full-time lap. Even going down the Casino Straight, you have no break. There's no opportunity here because the walls are right there. They're these little back and forth. And the fun thing, though, the thing I like the most about this track is you have so many opportunities for passing. Getting up at the end of the Casino Straight, even down into the Senna chicane, coming out of Wall of Champions. It really depends on how you move up through there. Going into the hairpin, every little complex through here, you have an opportunity for pass. So that leaves us a lot of opportunity for really good racing throughout this entire race.
Let's hope that we get it here today. But before we watch that racing, we want to mention our sponsors, Porsche. There is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com. And Game Changer Wealth, helping you become a game changer with wealth. Contact them today at GameChangerBR.com or at 225-664-2565. Now, for the style of this race, we go with our traditional format. Michael, why don't you run us down the race details?
Well, we're almost to the end of the season. This is round 11 out of 13. Everyone's driving the same car, the 992, the Porsche 911 GT3R. It is a 30-minute race, just like qualifying, but there's a fixed setup, which is different from the qualifying. Qualifying, they have lower fuel, but they're going to run a full fuel setup for the race. So it'll be difficult to manage that car on the front end with all that fuel in there at the beginning of the race. Watch for the speeds to pick up significantly towards the end.
Got about 3.5 minutes left here in qualifying. And right now, it's Jad Duncan on the provisional pole. He's been up there since very early in the qualifying. And Chris Walsh has been unable to match him, but they are both out on track right now. There you see actually line astern. Jad just crossed that lap, got deleted. That was an out lap, and it looks like the same for Chris, as I've seen a number of drivers be in and out to take tires numerous times during this session. I'm guessing they've taken their last set here, Michael, to try and get one last flyer in.
Yeah, one of the tricks to qualifying in this particular league is because you have a limited or a fixed amount of fuel, I should say. If you have to go in and change your car, like you have a crash or something, you're going to come back out with a full or at least a half a tank of fuel. So what a lot of people do is they go out, they run a couple of laps, you get a good feel for the track while that car is still what we'll call full. It's a half tank. And then as they go on, they keep burning fuel. Then at the end, when you got a couple of laps left of time, you go ahead, get a new set of wheels on there, a new set of tires. You go back out and you put down your burners. Now is when we're going to see people really trying to get every last tenth out of it. Watch how close Chris comes up to that wall right there. He just right up to the edge, taking just a little bit of paint off the edge of that mirror as he goes screaming down the casino straight, trying to chase Jad once again.
Right now, I'm showing him as very close to improving. He only needs less than a quarter of a second to overtake Jad Duncan, but Duncan also showing like he might have one of his best laps coming his way, as he'll get one more try after this and no more than that. He'll cross the line. Duncan does not improve. That lap was deleted. Chris Walsh does improve, 36.061, but it's not going to do it. He's still 0.2 off of the 83 car.
Yeah, and Jad's lap, had he not gotten an incident point on there, hit the grass or whatever, or maybe scraped the wall, he was going to be a good bit faster. Jad's really bringing it to this race. I think Jad is looking towards another win this night.
Now this man, AJ Roper, we step away from, of course, is our points leader. But interestingly, Chris Walsh, who is in second, must attend all three of the final races. Now, he made it here today. That's the good news. But if he misses any more rounds, he won't meet the minimum number of 9 races. And Chris is the closest in points to AJ. So that's where it's going to be interesting in these remaining races. And we did the math. And it looks like, well, actually, you know what? Now that I think about all that math we did, Michael, did they have double points on the final race? Because I think that's an endurance one, isn't it?
Yeah, well, never trust what you write on a napkin. It's very rarely correct. But I believe you're right. I believe it is double points. I'd have to go double check, but that sounds right.
Okay, so yeah, that does change it a bit. But I was going to say, if it wasn't for those double points, we had thought that they would wind up tied on points, and Chris would win due to number of victories having over his rivals. But with the double points, that would make it no longer a tie. And no matter what Roper does, he would still wind up second in the points, even if he finished P2 in every race. So Chris Walsh, it's not out of the question that he could win every remaining race, but he's got to get there first. And right now, the pace isn't looking like he's got the speed over one lap, as Duncan's done with his qualifying, still on pole. AJ Roper is now out there in second. Chris Walsh also has retired the car from qualifying, so they are going to stay in their positions. AJ could steal the pole here.
I would love to see AJ up there, but I kind of like seeing Jad up there too. Both really good drivers who have done some amazing racing this season. So either one of them, I'm happy to see. I'd love to see those two on the front row try to battle it out and then see if Chris Walsh is able to work his way through. Back in P4, looks like, it's going to be Michael Bolton back there in P4. Bolton, kind of like me, doesn't always qualify as well, but watch him race. When he gets into the race, he's going to just be a little bit sneaky here and there. He's going to find those opportunities and really take advantage of them, as well as BJ Fulton. Now, I love the Bolton-Fulton combination, because those two, when they get going into a race, it's kind of its own little extravaganza all to itself.
Well, that was Roche in the Marlboro car across the line and celebrating the end of his qualifying, but he didn't improve unfortunately. So he will stay in the 9th position. And as the clock officially now wraps up, it has hit 0 on the laps that they are allowed to do, but they need to wrap up. Oh, it looks like actually they'll move it over early. So that's nice for us as everybody's completed it. And that means we can, in fact, go through the grid here at the start of the race. Just as the rain starts to come down, Jad Duncan will be on the pole. AJ Roper will be starting in P2, and Chris Walsh will be P3. Then you've got Michael Bolton starting from 4th, and BJ Fulton only good enough for 5th. Ezra Kelderman's been quick in past races, not so in qualifying this time, only 6th for him, as Mark Rondeau starts 7th, and Dustin Heindel will begin from 8th. Ian Roche, as we mentioned, was 9th after all was said and done. Good qualifying from Will Castillo as well, getting himself a top 10, Michael.
In P11, it's one of the newcomers here today, Robert Leclerc, with Jim Garamani is going to be in 12th. Jeffrey Shulam's going to be 13th. Larry Haas in 14th, with John Momeyer bringing in the rest of the field today.
So we'll wait to get shots here of the cars out on the grid, because as we said, it is now raining. There's the rest of our grid on your screen. So yeah, it is coming down right now. Michael and I anticipated that it likely could be like this at the start of the race. Now, the percentage goes down over the course of it, but not a whole lot with this only being a 30-minute race. So likely it's going to be raining throughout, and it's going to make a track like this absolutely diabolical, Michael.
Yeah, it looks like we've got a little bit of a heavy cell about to come in. Once that passes through, though, it's going to be hopefully drying out, getting a drier line. But I don't think we're going to see a completely dry race here today. And it's going to really shake things up for these drivers. Not everyone is as comfortable in the rain as everyone else.
Here's the thing, though. As you know, we were seeing some of the raindrops there on our screen. Now it looks like we're not seeing them as much. It's telling me track is mostly dry, and it does visibly look like it's kind of dry from this shot. So I wonder if it's, what it's actually going to look like once they get going. Let's see. As, yeah, some of the shots you can see some rain, others not so much. Must be pretty light as they come out of the final chicane to the line. Green flag is out, and Jad Duncan is on it. Can he hold AJ Roper at bay as they come down into the center? A look to the inside from Chris Walsh. Round the outside for AJ Roper to take the lead away.
As the rain starts to come down just a little bit stronger, it'll be interesting to watch who decides to make that dive in for those wet tires first. Right now, the track is still showing fairly dry, but those windshield wipers are wiping away that rain. They're going to have to start staying off that curbing. As you see right now, they're still very comfortable jumping across it, but as time changes, or as the wet level of the track changes, and you can see it coming up there as they run those cars across it. Ooh, a little bit of a slide there from Jad Duncan as he tries to hold off Chris Walsh right behind him. It looks like it might be getting the best of Jad right now.
And now we're starting to see that spray off of the tires. So yeah, it's getting wet enough out there. Drivers now coming into turn 8, a little bit wide there for Jad Duncan. He's struggling with the grip. He's going to be slow off the corner, and Walsh is going to capitalize.
Yeah, Walsh is able to get around him, but it looks like a bit of a roadblock here with Jad Duncan holding on to that left side. But coming up underneath him, is that going to be Michael Bolton able to make up another position, putting the power down to head out of that hairpin? Looks like Michael Bolton's able to get up into P3 ahead of Jad Duncan. Jad just not having a good time in the wet today.
Certainly doesn't seem like it, but as they now come down towards the final chicane, towards the Wall of Champions, Roper still leads under braking. Everybody going to be able to blow it up enough in time? Looks like yes, they will. And in mostly single file through there is the good news, despite a few taking some looks. Walsh runs second, Bolton in third, Jad Duncan falling all the way to fourth from the pole.
AJ Roper still in the lead, holding on to a good little almost 2 seconds, right about 2 seconds now, over Chris Walsh, who has moved up into P2. Michael Bolton in P3. Little bit of movement through the rest of the field, but watch for changes as this track gets wetter. You can see right there coming off the back of that car, you've got just a little bit of that spray coming up. I wonder, maybe Jad started with wet tires, so he couldn't quite get it down? Is that possible?
I pulled it up because I wanted to double check. Everybody is on wets, but Ezra Kelderman. And Ezra's actually moving up. He's to 4th. It might not be a bad call. Maybe it's just not wet enough for the wet tires to really get the cooling that they need. They don't seem quite as quick as the number 9.
Well, until it starts to really puddle in real life, the way it happens in the sim can be a little confusing at times. But in real life, as long as you're not running through a puddle, you are pretty good on good, hot, sticky slicks until it starts to get to the point where you're hydroplaning, and then it becomes really white knuckle, honestly. But you can be faster on slicks in the wet if you're able to make contact with the ground. But that's that really tricky point where they really try to play with that in the sim and find out where to have enough wet on the surface to where you make that crossover.
And you could see a little bit of weaving down the casino straight by Kelderman, trying to keep the heat in the tires so that they don't cool off too much. He knows that's going to be so critical here as he's rocked up behind Chris Walsh. He's already made it onto the podium, passing Michael Bolton there down through turns 3 and 4. Nothing doing at that stage. No place to get past. He's going to have to wait for a nice, good braking zone.
Ezra Kelderman, meanwhile, is moved up to P3, getting around Michael Bolton. Has his sights set, though, on Chris Walsh, trying to get up there. He's right on Chris's tail. He's got an opportunity here to get around, but look right there. You see that rain coming down just a little bit harder. Did Ezra make the right choice? Is he going to be able to continue to drive with these slicks? It's looking good for now, but how long will that hold on?
Yeah, and if he has to make a stop while everybody else does not, that'll effectively ruin his race from here. But we'll see. So far he's managing it shockingly well, despite, look at how wet it is here. I got to think he's getting close to that crossover point. Still, he's able to run the inside line a little bit better than Chris Walsh. Wasn't able to make the overtake and stays down in 3rd, but he holds the fastest lap of the race as Ezra at a 42.3. Next nearest car is, I think, Bolton ran a 43.6. Even still, that's a long ways away.
That is a big gap. While it points to, it still works with the slicks, but with the way this rain is coming down, and if I take a look at the weather map, I don't think it's going to last for long. We're about to get a cell of a little bit heavier rain coming in here, but on the other side of it, it's a very short little window of heavier rain. On the other side, it's going to be just like it is now. And as long as that track doesn't get significantly wetter, he could have made the right choice. It would be an interesting trump card played there.
Yeah, just a real amazing call that I would have absolutely doubted when they grid up. But who knows? We'll see as we watch Michael Bolton here, still in 4th, and now starting to look a little bit quicker at times. So I think we're starting to see that play reverse itself as they come down the back straight up towards turn 8. He's going to pull away a little bit here, Will Kelderman. And there it is. He goes off track. Bolton gets it with ease.
Yeah, Bolton back into P3. Chris Walsh, though, having a little bit of difficulty getting his new breakpoint set. He's been trying to ease it back, but he got a little bit too hot into a couple of corners already. Meanwhile, look at this. We have got some, interesting action there. That's going to be Kelderman once again out. I think he's going to come down the straight here and make that dive down into pit lane to switch over to the wets. He's got to this time. I don't know that he can hold on.
Yeah, no, it's way, way too wet. And he's not the only one struggling. Roche, despite being on wet tires, you can see him spinning them up coming out of the hairpin. Actually got into the side of Rondeau. And will we see him actually head in? No, he's sticking it out. This surely cannot work. He's been off the track now twice in one lap effectively.
Well, maybe he learned the lesson and knows he needs to brake just a little bit earlier. Something's still working for him, or at least he believes it's still working for him in that car. He seems to be holding on really nicely going through the Senna chicane here. I think he might have gotten a good choice. We'll see how this rain holds out, though.
Sorry, that was Rondeau getting sent into the wall there. A little bit of side-to-side contact, and unfortunately, there just wasn't enough space on this little straight for him to run through the grass and collect it. It looks like he will get the car going, but there is definite damage on the nose.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to probably need to make that stop and get his fast repair, his spare car there. That's going to be a tough one for him, but he's a fighter. He'll try to catch back up. I have no doubt. And with the rain, there's no telling what's going to happen next.
So another possible theory on Kelderman. I wonder if he just didn't check to see which tires he put on at the start. It could be that he doesn't know he has slicks on right now.
I think he's really aware that there's slicks at this point, but it may be a surprise to him that everyone else switched and he didn't. I wonder, though. He could have made that as a conscious decision. It really wasn't raining hard. To be honest, it was raining light enough where I might have tried it, but I would look at what the weather forecast shows. And if I look at it right now, it's saying 100%, obviously, because it's raining. And even up through the next 4 or 5 minutes, it's only dropping to about 97. And looking at the weather map, we're getting out of this heavier section of rain. If he holds on to this and only loses 1 or 2 positions, it's possible he could work his way back up as long as the track dries. That's the thing. It's got to dry.
I mean, he went past it again, so I'm not so sure. He's already down to 8th, which is 2 positions down from where he started. So it's a net loss at this stage. I guess it all matters where it sits at the end of the race. But I'm still kind of on the side of him not realizing which tire he was on, and now it's gone as he hits the wall out of turn 4.
Yeah, it's going to make it painfully obvious which tire he's on now if he didn't know. And I'm sure someone's letting him know that I think that wet tire or that dry tire may not be the right choice at this point. He's going to have to get into the pits now to get that spare car, because I don't think he can continue to the end of the race with what he has.
Meanwhile, checking out Leclerc chasing on Rondeau. Robert Leclerc, I believe, a new driver in this series. Don't think we've seen him yet this season. But as they come down through turn 8, you can see both of them still struggling with the grip on the track, as now we switch over to Heindel chasing Roche and Fulton.
Yeah, BJ Fulton wanting to catch up to Jad Duncan, but he's still got about a 2.5 second gap up there. But he's got Ian Roche on his tail, only about 0.6 off. You see, we've got Jad Duncan right there at the right side of your screen coming into the braking zone, as it looks like BJ's taking a bit of a defensive line, doesn't want Ian Roche to come around him in that red and white Marlboro car. He's holding on to that position just by driving defensively.
Well, in front of him, BJ Fulton with himself in a top 5. In fact, exactly where he began this race. Just trying to see whether or not, as they get close to making contact. In fact, I think there was a bit of contact there as Roche just tips the rear bumper of that number 82. Thankfully, nobody is spun this time. But a deep dive from Heindel. I thought he was going for it, and last minute was able to slow the car up.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was a conscious attempt at a dive in there, or just, well, the track conditions kind of left me no choice. I kind of go towards the latter there. I think it was more of a surprise to him than an intentional maneuver.
So that's going to slow Dustin up a little bit here as he's lost a few car lengths. Looks like Roche is going to try and set him up down into turn 8, forces Fulton to go defensive in front of them. Michael Bolton spins. He's going to lose that 4th position. He slips behind as now Fulton jumps up to P4.
Yeah, Michael Bolton falling back into P7 now. He's got to catch back up with this little pack of Heindel, Roche, and Fulton. Oh, as Fulton goes wide. Fulton is wide, misses his break point. Is he going to get passed by two? It looks like both are going to get around him. Looks like, yep, Dustin Heindel and Ian Roche able to get around him. That puts Jad Duncan up to third place with the Michael Bolton spin. And then Bolton going wide, that puts Heindel and Roche up into fifth and fourth, respectively.
Riding on board. Thankfully, it looks like visibility isn't too horribly bad right now. Maybe that's because it hasn't been raining super hard. But you can still see the spray definitely obscures, and yeah, BJ is going to pop out of it a bit to help himself out.
Yeah, it's interesting when you try to drive in the rain. Now it's pretty realistic here, just the level of visibility. So when you're in a race car and you've got a car in front of you throwing up those rooster tails, you really cannot see anything. You're kind of counting as you come up. If you know it's going to rain, you get these little markers here and there, and you say, okay, there's that marker. I've got 3, 2, 1, break. Oh, hey, I got it right this time. That was good. So you don't always hit it, though. And I think that may be what happened earlier when we saw, I think it was Dustin Heindel make that little drop of the nose in there. I think he may have just missed that timing mark a little bit, or the track is getting a little wetter than he thought it was.
Well, oh, and ahead of them, another car off. This time it's Jad Duncan. That was our leader, our former leader, I guess. Still, Jad remains in third as he's going to try and see if Dustin can be held off coming down into the hairpin. In fact, goes very defensive going into Lepingle, but that sends him wide as he's so shallow. Dustin takes advantage of it. He tries to outgun him off the corner, but the wide line actually works in the end as that yellow and black number 83 is going to pull ahead briefly, but now the drag race swings back to Dustin.
I think Dustin's in the better position because he's off the normal racing line. What happens here in the wet is when you get the water on top of where the rubber is, which really works for you when it's dry. When it's wet, it makes it a little bit slicker. A little bit? No, it makes it a lot slicker. And when you're going to put the power down, trying to get down that straightaway, you just can't get enough power down. That's why that drag race was won by Dustin Heindel. But Dustin, finding himself on that slippery bit, just barely holding on to it. Looks like Jad Duncan tried to take that little bit tighter line on the inside, hoping to pick up that traction like you saw before. But these guys, wow, they are getting close to that wall with that much water on the track.
Yeah, Heindel definitely sent it in a little deep into the Senna S. So he got away with it, but just barely. This is turning into quite the back and forth battle. And again, he finds himself braking a little bit farther than maybe the car can handle. Duncan starts to close up, but then falls back again on the exit. Roche behind him in the red and white is trying to see if he can make something happen down into turn 8. He's going to outbrake him and just about get his nose in. Oh, both cars in front of him go too deep. He tries to cut back underneath, and he's going to have to thread the needle. Somehow he does it, and he is through. It is absolute chaos out there in the rain.
Indeed it is, but looks like Michael Bolton and Will Castillo, big sigh of relief because now they've got somebody to draft. But meanwhile, looks like Jad Duncan once again going wildly wide at the hairpin. It's going to be another drag race down the Casino Straight. Who's going to win it this time? Looks like BJ Fulton has made his way back up into fourth place. Ian Roche into third, holding on nicely to third. Look at that gap. He's got quite the gap there. Speaking of gap, we don't have to go to it, but up front, AJ Roper has about 2.5, 3 seconds over Chris Walsh. So he's actually holding on to a very strong lead, very comfortable lead, even with this rain. As long as he minds his P's and Q's, make sure he hits all those braking points, he's going to be fine, as this accordion effect works pretty well here. And it looks like Michael Bolton's car is trying to eat, with those giant teeth on the front, the car of Dustin Heindel.
And this goes from third down to ninth now. This train is really backed up, which is going to be fascinating if these cars behind are much better on these tires at this stage. Maybe they were going easy early on, and that's helping them with a little bit more tread on it. Look at how wet it is now. I think the rain has either gotten heavier or the track has just gotten so wet. That's why we might be seeing more cars going off. The grip conditions are continually deteriorating. The drivers aren't necessarily keeping track of it.
Watch as these drivers go into a braking zone, though. Now, Jad Duncan didn't do it there, and yep, he paid the price for it. The car is trailing him, dodged off to the right side, off of that rubbery area, and were able to brake a whole lot more effectively because now they're using the rain tires as they're meant to be used. You don't want to be on that rubber. And wow, looks like Dustin Heindel trying to make yet another dive up there. Oh, and then looks like that was that's going to be Jad Duncan going around. Jad went around once again. This little group right here has been thoroughly entertaining this whole race.
From pole down to ninth place for poor Jad Duncan. This is not the race he was hoping for, especially following up a fantastic race last time out at Phillip Island where he took a win. And coming off of the Wall of Champions, Dustin Heindel, once back on the podium, he briefly had it, but he's got to both pass BJ Fulton and catch up to Ian Roche, who definitely seems to be going along, well, swimmingly, to put a word on it.
Yep, swimming his way through there, putting a good little gap in there. But watch these two right here. These two have been kind of having a little back and forth battle this whole race. I think BJ might want it a little bit more, but I don't know. It's hard to say. Dustin has had his moments where he's gotten pretty aggressive and made some really nice passes.
Yeah, I'm definitely really happy seeing this sort of performance from Dustin Heindel. Remember, some of the earlier races we saw out of him were kind of hit or miss, and now it seems like he's kind of got his sea legs here, both on the sim and in the rain. Maybe he's just one that kind of thrives in these changeable conditions.
I know one of my favorite conditions to race in, honestly, is rain. Night is fun. Of course, all day long is fun too, but I really love racing in the rain. It's the great equalizer because now the car plays a little bit less of a role in the whole scheme of things. Now look there, we see Michael Bolton still out on that regular line. He was able to hold on to it though. He's got a good control of that brake pedal, hitting up onto the curbing there. That may have affected his ability to head down this straightaway. Right behind him, though, that's Mark Rondeau. We saw Rondeau with issues early on in the race, worked his way all the way back up to 8th place now. Michael Bolton in front of him, about 3/4 of a second out. Also about that same gap up to Dustin Heindel as Heindel goes through up to the Wall of Champions. Notice how far Heindel stayed away from the wall there, but Bolton still pushing out to it. In the rain there, you really don't want to get out there. There's too much rubber out there. You're going to lose grip.
I may have spoken a little too soon about Dustin. As soon as I said that, he cut through turn. It's 8 and 9. So he got a slowdown penalty, hence why he's now in 6th, just in front of Michael Bolton. But, I mean, take your pick. It's been just an ever-changing cast of who is in what position in this middle group of cars. About the only thing that's been solidified recently is Roche running away with that 3rd place. He's definitely left this group behind.
Yeah, he's trying to open that up to a good 4-second gap, and I don't think BJ minds too much because at least now he can see. He has good visibility where he's going. But speaking of seeing, I'm seeing a bit of a hole coming up here in the weather. So it may stop raining here in the next few minutes, depending on how it kind of falls around the track. But there is a chance that the active downpour will stop. But will the track dry out? That's the big question. I think these guys are going to stay on the rain tires as they try to make their way through this all the way to the end. I don't foresee anybody trying to go back to slicks.
BJ Fulton now the latest with a cut course penalty. Had to slow up, give that time back. He's stuck behind Will Castillo, who has been having perhaps one of the best days we've ever seen out of him. And then Dustin Heindel almost was able to get back around him. They're in a drag race down to the braking of Quebec. And it looks like Dustin's going to back out of that a little early just to allow BJ Fulton through. Again, survival mode is one of the things about this track that sometimes you have to just accept.
Yeah, people talk about road courses and street courses. This is kind of both, honestly. Oh, is Shulam? Oh, Jeffrey Shulam having some difficulty finding where the traction is on the track today. Jeffrey is back in P12. This is tough for him. He's having a hard time just keeping that car where it is. That's Larry Haas right behind him, chasing him down. That's a pretty good race we have going on there. Behind them a good bit, though, is going to be Ezra Kelderman. He had that issue early on. He did, in fact, pit, but he has lost 8 positions today.
Yeah, I've heard the debate on if this counts as a street course or not. To me, some of the, while this is a park for most of the time that it's not used on race weekends, some of these are used for cars to drive on to get to the casino. So I say that makes it counts as a street circuit. But anyways, as we watch Michael Bolton here still behind Dustin Heindel, that turn 8 chicane has been the bane of most of these drivers' existence in this race. We've seen more cut courses through there than any place else. Michael's going to stay on the racing line. Can he make the corner on that rubbered up line? He goes a little bit out wide, which will feed him some of the grip back, but not enough to overtake on Dustin Heindel.
I think he's hoping for a bit of a draft heading down here. He did get a little bit better launch. He's got better speed at this point, heading down the long casino straight. Puts his nose out. Does he have enough to get around? I think not. This is probably just to get a little bit of visibility so he can find that breaking point.
Now, I want to note that last lap, Roper, while he was quicker than Walsh, the lap before, he lost some time, and it was down to sub 2 seconds for a little while. So I don't think this is over quite yet. We got 6 minutes left to go. And to answer your theory before about if the rain will stop and will anybody change tires, I don't think 6 minutes will be enough as Bolton clatters over the curb and nearly runs into Dustin.
Yeah, I think Bolton's car is getting hungry for a little bit of blue marshmallow there on Dustin Heindel's car. Bolton has an opportunity to move up here. I think if he puts enough pressure on Dustin, he could get up into P6. Getting around BJ Fulton, though, that's going to be one of the classic battles we have seen from these two for several seasons now.
And this is honestly one of my favorite battles we've seen for some time with so many of these drivers. This race has thrown quite the wild card into the mix. Dustin Heindel looking back once again on Michael Bolton. Bolton going to try and go to the inside, far off the racing line, finding grip compared to his rivals as they all slide into the corner. A little bit too much there for Dustin, but he gets the grip going off of it ahead of him. BJ Fulton just barely hanging on to that 5th place.
Yeah, just 0.3 of a second between Fulton, Heindel, Heindel and Bolton and Rondeau. This is just a tight little group. Everybody hoping to push their way up. Meanwhile, Will Castillo is going, I'll see you guys later. I'm holding on to a 1.5 seconds in front of BJ Fulton. But up front, AJ Roper still holding on barely. It's around 0.75 of a second up there. But back here, where the big race is going on, these guys are really putting on a show for us, especially these 4 you see right here with BJ Fulton leading this pack from P5.
And we need to talk about that orange car that's now actually extending the gap to him. Will Castillo, his best finish this season is a 9th place. Everything else has been 10th or lower for him. So for him to look at 4th, I mean, this is a phenomenal day for that 8 car.
It may be too soon to give him the nickname of Regenmeister, but I think he's mastering the rain pretty well today.
Well, doesn't he have a Jägermeister paint scheme on that?
So, that's where, I think it was the Jägermeister that made me come up with Regenmeister for him, because he's putting on a really good show for us today in the rain. But look at this up front. This is AJ Roper and Chris Walsh. Chris has closed this up quite a bit. He is right up about 0.7 off the back of AJ Roper. AJ wanting to hold on to this lead. He would really like to win this race. It's going to make things a whole lot easier towards the end of the season with just 2 more races after this one. Can he hold on to this position, or is Chris going to be able to take it away from him? Chris Walsh going through the last corner up against the wall of champions, catching a little bit of the grass there as they head down the pit straight to cross start finish for one, probably two more laps here.
Both of them likely know this is going to be an important one moving forward. AJ knows he needs to be beating Chris, especially if Walsh continues to arrive at the remaining 2 races to try and take the fight to him as we come down towards turn 3. So far, Chris has been able to close, but can he pass? We've seen battles like this in the past here at this track, Michael, where it's wet conditions and it might come down to the last lap.
I am absolutely flabbergasted at how much curbing these guys are taking. Look at AJ. AJ is staying out of those puddles right on the curb, and he's able to get these really good launches, but there's some magic in the left foot of Chris Walsh. He's able to manage that brake pedal beautifully. So when they get up into these brake zones, he positions the car just right and is able to close that gap down. But coming back through here, notice they both are going through that little wet patch where that water is puddled there, and it's going to be tight. Watch as we come down here into the hairpin. Defensive for AJ. There might be a little bit of a love tap there from Chris Walsh as they come out, putting the power down. Notice the different line. AJ takes it a little shallower, gets the traction, and opens up that gap. Chris Walsh sitting back, maybe waiting for the next lap to see what he can make happen.
Oh, it's such a good run from Chris out of turn 9. I thought for sure we would see him at least get side by side into Lapingle, but couldn't quite get the job done. Both of them now through Quebec by the wall of champions. And again, Chris looks much better exiting the corner, although he squirms in the final stage of it, and that may have cost him what was a good opportunity.
Yeah, not a bad thing. It's good for him to have the confidence to know that he can make it through these corners a little bit quicker, that he's just got a little bit better feel for the car. But that little bit of mistake, now he knows exactly how much he can put the hammer down when he comes off that corner. So next lap around, watch for him to be able to not get that wiggle out of it and maybe make up a little gap, maybe make up a little bit of an overlap. Now, AJ opening up this gap again. This is our final lap. This is going to be the one for all the marbles. You can see those wet patches in there. Chris just diving straight through them like they're not even there. AJ going around the outside as they get down towards this GoDaddy straight. Looks like he's going to close it up. Chris is really closing up this gap. He gets a much better launch out of that corner.
Just some housekeeping, but BJ Fulton involved in an accident with Heindel. He's headed to the pits. Doesn't look like he'll be able to necessarily finish this race, although he might be able to bring it back out with his spare car. In the meantime, AJ Roper has withstood the pressure so far. Can he last just a couple more corners to take another victory this season and extend his gap over Chris Walsh? He makes his way out of the hairpin, and it's looking good so far. A single victory this season in round 5 for AJ Roper, but he's been on the podium an impressive 7 times so far. I said his consistency has been his best friend, but today it looks like his speed has definitely been what's helped him out. This could be a drag race to the line as it's a good run, just slapping the wall and into the grass. No, not for Chris Walsh today. It is for AJ Roper, who gets a win in Montreal.
Wow, quite the finish there. Looks like Chris Walsh is going to have a little paint job to do on the right side of his car. Meanwhile, we're going to watch as Ian Roche, about 37 seconds back. That was quite the lead that front pair had. But Ian Roche in P3, Will Castillo behind him, pretty sizable gap, about 5 seconds, coming up to the final corner, getting into the braking zone plenty of time early, does not need to push that too hard. It barely even gets out to the white paint, much less to the curbing, coming across up to the finish line, finishing P3, Ian Roche.
Wow, that just shows you the magic touch that AJ and Chris had in this race. And how about Will Castillo? 4th place, improving his best finish by many, many positions there. So he's going to be celebrating that one, as it looks like after all that battling, Heindel winds up having to accept 7th. And poor Jad Duncan, who started this one on the pole, only 8th place for him. As for Ezra Kelderman, he did wind up pitting and taking repairs as well as wet tires, but he'll have to settle for 11th it looks like, on that one, as that's Jeffrey Schulem just behind him, along with Momeyer.
Yeah, quite a race going on today. I hear a little bit of radio chatter saying how fun this broadcast must have been. It was a blast watching just all this racing going back and forth. Everybody having good times and bad times today.
Yeah, like you said, it's both the equalizer and, as we found out, a great source of entertainment. So rain doesn't always put the kibosh on a nice day out, as the last of them come across the line. That means that is it for our results. And it is going to be AJ Roper taking the victory, an important one in his championship run. Chris Walsh now has more work to do, as he will settle for second place out there. Then it comes to Ian Roche, who gets himself a podium, and that's actually, yes, his first podium of the season. Congratulations to the 5 driver. Will Castillo, also congratulations, taking his best finish of the season in 4th, and Michael Bolton getting a top 5 there in P5. As Mark Rondeau finishes 6th, Dustin Heindel will come home in 7th, and then Jad Duncan will unfortunately have to settle for 8th. Robert Leclerc, and the first time we've seen him, will be P9, as BJ Fulton wraps up a top 10, Michael.
Ezra Kelderman started out on those dry tires, the full slicks. Looked like a good call. Ends up P11 due to an incident. Jeffrey Schulem in 12th. John Momeyer 13th. Larry Haas in 14th. And on his debut, Jim Garamani 1 lap down in P15.
Wow, just an absolutely amazing race out there. And I had a blast calling today's race. We don't get a lot of rain on the channel, but this time it proved to be an absolute blast. So let's wrap it up, of course, with a big thank you to the Porsche Owners Club for bringing us back, and also to their sponsors. Porsche, there is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com, and Game Changer Wealth. Contact them at GameChangerBR.com or at 225-664-2565. Thanks to the team today, Michael, Daniel, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media website and our merchandise store. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. Next time, we're going to be at Watkins Glen, a very fast one with also close walls, but not a street circuit. And that'll be Monday, June 17th at 11 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to check out our other broadcasts that we have listed here. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.